Is the AI trade hitting a wall? Micron's blowout earnings couldn't stop the sell-off. Apple bouncing back, but higher memory costs are still forcing price hikes in the marketplace. The Nasdaq is having a tough week, but is the worst of it over? Welcome to the Big Money Show, everyone. I'm Jackie DeAngelis, along with my co-hosts Taylor Riggs, Dagan McDowell, Brian Bremberg, and with us for 2 hours, not 1 hour, Fox Business contributor and entrepreneur Marcus Lemonis. Always great to have you. So tech built this rally, but now it's the cause of a lot of market anxiety. More companies are benefiting from the AI boom, but more companies are also absorbing the mounting costs that come with it. Now, OpenAI's reported IPO delay is also rattling the AI trade. Qualcomm is making its move, expanding beyond smartphones and deeper into AI data centers. That's the next phase of all this. And with inflation still stubborn, the Fed is keeping rate hike fears alive, just as the AI trade starts to lose momentum. So, Marcus, there is a lot to dig into there and moving parts here. We've been kicking this AI trade around all week as this has been unfolding, but I'm curious to get your thoughts and a fresh perspective.
If you look at any technology revolution that's ever happened, when people first discover that technology, everybody's in on everything because they just want to be part of the theme. But over time, as things progress, and I think we're experiencing that now, what ultimately people want to know is, where is the money made? And if you looked at all the layers from the origination of the chip, or even before that, all the way through and the consumer gets it, who is making the money in that process? And I think what investors are saying today is, we're in the space, now we want to invest in who makes money.
Okay, I was optimistic about what Micron's earnings, but also, even though consumers aren't going to like an Apple price hike, it tells you that the pricing power of these chips are still there, which means to me, Brian, that we're early on in this, you know, in the ball game still. When we try to sort of speculate what inning we're in, we're still early on. And then I'm hearing about data center investing. We haven't even gotten there yet. So I have to look at some of these valuations and some of these moves in these stocks and say, even what we've seen this week, this could be normal profit taking. People just saying, my stock has moved a lot, I want to book some profits here, and I could reevaluate or wait to buy on a dip.
It's just lots of uncertainty about a new space, right? We don't know who the winners are going to be. We don't know how the technology is going to evolve. So right now, like the Microns of the world have this amazing pricing power, right? We can't get enough memory chips, right? All their customers, I can't get enough. Apple's having to raise prices. Well, what do you think those customers are going to do over time as they get sick of not being able to get the memory they need?
Develop it themselves.
They're going to develop it themselves. Yeah. There's a great piece in the Journal today on exactly this issue, and one of the things they mentioned is there was a big dip in Micron back in March when a Google paper came out about turbo-quant. I have no idea what that is. I don't understand turbo or quantum computing. But
zeros and ones.
That's right. But the point of it was that it was an algorithm that sharply reduced memory use, and it didn't jeopardize AI performance. Okay, now, will that happen? I have no idea, okay? And neither does Micron, and probably neither does Alphabet. But the point is, they're all looking for it, okay? And the beauty of a free market system is when prices are high and you can't get what you want, you find ways to innovate. And markets are going to have to process that, which means up and down and left and right and so forth. But that's okay, because fundamentally, underlying that is an economy that's discovering the future. I would argue faster than a centrally planned economy, faster than the Chinese economy can do it, as long as we don't try to play their game, and that's my biggest worry.
But you're proposing vertical integration is going to happen in these companies, and they're going to allocate capital to it. And the problem with that is that investors will start to worry about the execution risk. And if you start to be one thing and then you try to be every part of that stack, I just want you to be a subject matter expert. I don't want you to be all over the place.
You don't have to vertically integrate. Why not seed companies? Why not find somebody out there who's doing something promising and invest in them? You don't have to own it.
So then you're going
to... You have to incorporate it into your own process.
So are you going to acquire or invest in the vertical integration?
I mean, maybe if you see somebody who works.
Sounds oddly familiar to what, like, NVIDIA is doing right now. They're making investments in Nebius. They're making...
I'd buy that.
Microsoft's making bets in OpenAI. You know, now we've talked about how some of that feels circular and there's like reciprocal deals going on. But if I'm NVIDIA and I'm making a deal in AWS and then they've promised to buy my chips in return, if like some of that is happening.
I'm wondering about like actual acquisitions, though. I feel like that's more of what you're talking about, like integrating it into your business model. That's interesting, but I'm also intrigued by this, Dagan, and I thought that you would be also. OpenAI kind of mulling this idea of delaying the IPO. SpaceX is a different beast, but moved forward in this market, and we saw the results of what happened. Your thoughts on that? Because many are saying the market is getting spooked by that, but maybe it's the chicken and egg, and OpenAI is getting spooked by the market.
Well, that is actually related to something we're going to talk about later in this hour, and the story that it's reports out there that the Trump administration has asked OpenAI to limit its next AI model release, citing security concerns. And you said, we're doing something that a centrally planned economy cannot. Well, I talked to a couple of tech executives this morning who said that the Anthropic Mythos Fable 5 business and the government, the Trump administration essentially blocking it, has really spooked people. It has been 2 weeks now. There is no information, and these are coming from executives and companies that use Anthropic's models. We're using Fable 5 to do work and paying for it. These were two executives who said this. We've got no information. No one knows what's going on. Communist China loves this, that the U.S. government is screwing a bleeding edge, leading edge AI company. Anything that spooks people about using American AI is good for Communist China. Here's what happened. This is a quote. Here's what happened to me at 5. I left work at 5 o'clock on a Friday afternoon, and Fable got shut down, and I had put jobs up to run over the weekend, and that effing stopped. Anthropic doesn't know who the end users of the accounts are. You know, it was the foreign nationals are banned. This is a global business. It is about Europe, Asia, Africa, North America, South America. The market is bigger than the U.S. And the backlash has been from customers that we cannot rely on American companies if this is the way they're going to get treated. The administration has to stop doing this. I will gladly turn and use Quinn, which is an Alibaba model. That is exactly what someone said to me on the phone this morning.
I was in the middle of building a whole, I was coding a whole cube to look at different data points in Fable on a Friday. And I had spent hours overnight doing it, and then I opened it up and it was gone.
And people can bitch about
unavailable.
People can bitch about Dario Omade and his politics and his fear fomenting and his panic peddling and all of that. But all you have to know is the best tech in AI got shut down. And it's been shut down for 2 weeks and counting, and no one who was using it and paying for it has any answers. And the Trump administration's the root of it.
Is that coming out of commerce? Like, who's that? What department is that coming out of? Primarily commerce?
Commerce or war because of national
Well,
security?
I know the war thing, but
well,
I'm saying,
the ring-a-ding-ding went to Treasury.
Okay.
But so it's a group of people making that decision.
Question
They can
here.
point the finger at Anthropic all they want, but everyone should be working together to resolve this. And instead, it's going in the opposite direction to what we're going to talk about. The government's telling OpenAI to stagger the release of its next model because American companies have such giant holes in their systems that they can't handle a AI model being released because you're basically a security risk.
But what if it's true? What if it is a security risk?
That's not the problem of AI. That's the problem of the company.
But can we talk about the broader market implications of this?
Yeah.
And what has sparked the sell-off?
Love it.
This in itself could be the reason. And having said that, Taylor, do investors look at what's happening here and say maybe the Chinese counterparts are the way to play it? We talked about the release of a new model yesterday from China that was very, very competitive.
Yeah, a few weeks ago, we talked about how Microsoft was looking at doing DeepSeek for their Copilot because it's an open source, cheaper model. There was an analysis out by Jefferies where they interviewed and polled 40 sort of IT tech executives, and basically 73% have said that their token spend, they've already like well ahead of budget. 5% of them already blown through their annual budgets. So they're trying to figure out, and my husband's at one of these companies where they said you have X dollars to spend per month on tokens, and you blow through that. And I think companies are trying to figure out what's my ROI on that.
You mean for the employees to use the tokens in their job to model things?
Yep.
Okay.
And then you're blowing out your entire IT budget like 3 months into your fiscal year. And
Okay.
You're like, oh my gosh.
So what do you do if you've bought a token and you've spent hours building a model that all of a sudden isn't accessible? You're out the money and you're out the time. Are you looking at Chinese models? What are you doing?
Well, I'm trying to figure out if Opus 4.8 works. And so I tried to take whatever I had written and copy and pasted it. And I don't know if it was going to be any different. I think the challenge is you're now starting to look for alternatives. I don't know that I'm going to go to a China product just yet because I worry about if I'm putting really significant proprietary thoughts and data in there, who's going to take my idea? And I even worry about it in this country. Am I giving it all these ideas and all this information? Is somebody going to get access to it, or am I teaching other people how to do it? I don't know.
Yeah.
You have companies, I think, trying to pivot where open source, cheap for like the normal stuff, and then your closed source, more expensive Anthropic for the high quality, high ROI stuff. So it's about quality over just quantity. But I think that's bringing up a good question for the market. I think the market, you're kind of in this air pocket right now where we've talked about $700 billion in CapEx spend this year, but we haven't seen the ROI yet or the monetization or the growth yet. So until we see that, maybe it's next quarter, next year, the market is in this air pocket where you're kind of like in this uncertainty. We don't have real information of was the CapEx spend worth it or not. I think we're in price discovery phase right now, figuring that out. And that takes time. Here's a fun stat.
But that's okay. That's okay. Like, all that's okay.
I agree.
It's not okay with these valuations where they are, which is what I went into yesterday.
No, I know. But I'm just talking about nobody went to business school 20 years ago and learned how to allocate tokens for this work, right? The people who manage these organizations are trying to figure out in real time how you use this new resource.
And you don't know what it costs.
Well, I will tell you one thing.
You don't know what it costs.
You don't know what it costs, and you don't know the application. You don't know who's going to be. Like, there's a lot of experimentation that has to fail to find things that work. And I agree with the valuation piece of this.
You don't base performance on token usage, which is what Uber was doing.
But on productivity and ROI
but that's not what the companies were doing.
A lot of companies are starting to pivot. I agree with you. I think
Uber
in the beginning, it was
last December, basically put up a tote board of like whoever uses the most tokens wins. But all of these companies are coming out and acting as if there isn't value being produced in token usage. That's on the company because they don't know, they can't manage their business. It's not on the AI model.
I'm not saying that. I'm thinking the market is looking at price discovery. The market's going to figure out if Uber can't run its business on how to manage its IT budget, we're going to price that in. What companies can manage their IT budgets in this area of uncertainty?
They're doing that now.
I think the market's trying to figure that out.
Learn.
Okay.
It takes money to learn.
It takes time to learn, but when you have a market that is so richly valued right now, where based on the value of AI, the AI collective companies, they would need to earn, just to support the current valuation, 3 times annually what the biggest, most profitable tech companies on earth combined earn. Apple, Meta, Amazon, Microsoft, and Google combined, they need to earn 3x that. That's why it doesn't make any sense.
That's why pullbacks
we're
are good.
either in for a ride.
How much you pulling back?
I'm just saying, pullbacks are good.
We're either in for a ride and some volatility, or people are going to...
Oh, and by the way, another thing I heard, the narrative that's out there, data centers aren't able to come online because of delays in the utility hookups.
Right.
That companies aren't able to meet projections because of logistical problems.
Dagan, I think your point is if you, when we put this into car racing, if I put a car on the track and I'm going to let it rip and the valuation's going to go, and then all of a sudden people from the stand start putting restrictor plates, which is something that actually slows the car down, and you don't know who it is and you don't know why they're doing it, you may not bet on that car to win the race because it doesn't make any sense. And so those valuations have a lot to do with people artificially just putting things in the...
Yeah. Okay, well, let's stick with technology and talk about Microsoft.
Yeah, so yesterday we talked about Apple raising prices 17 to 30% across the board. Now we're getting news Microsoft doing the same thing as it relates to their Xbox products. They actually are permanently discontinuing their highest end Xbox because that would put it into 4 figures, and they're saying we can't do that. So their lowest price is...
Wait, you're saying the high-end Xbox would cost more than $1,000?
So they said, we're not going to put it out.
Which is a mistake. Let the consumer decide if they want to chase that.
So their high end right now Xbox is $800. Prices went up $100 to $150 across the board. The lower end, $500. But they're blaming memory and the cost,
of the chip.
memory chips.
Well, NVIDIA, when it started, made chips for gaming, which is just so funny to me because the way they've branched out in this way. But it also reminds me of the iPhone. Someone was showing me their iPhone, the latest one, and the photo features, which is so much better than my phone that is not really that much older. And I'm thinking to myself, do I go buy the more expensive phone because I want those features and I don't have it, but I did spend money on this one and it's not really dead yet. When it comes to gaming consoles, I imagine people sort of have the same debate in their mind, and I'm guessing that Microsoft is worried that they're not going to want to upgrade in that way.
I have good news. I think the Apple price hikes were effective immediately. If you're still a gamer and you want your Xbox, it doesn't go into effect, the new prices, until August 1st, so you can go and front run it for another month.
But Microsoft has treated the entire Xbox division like a throwaway, like it doesn't care if it dies. And so that's the kind of root problem with their entire gaming platform and gaming business.